Hello and welcome to This Week at the Movies. I'm Matt and I am on by myself for the first show of 2024. Eric is out sick this week, but wanted to touch on the first wide release of 2024, as well as a movie that both Eric and I liked and was in our top 12 show last week that is going a little bit wider. We will start off with the first big wide release of 2024, and that is the horror movie Night Swim. It opened on Friday. It comes, as you can see by the graphic, from the producers of Megan and The Nun. And if that doesn't get you excited, you are not alone. This one, we have Wyatt Russell playing a baseball player who is diagnosed with MS, which effectively ends his playing career. He's married to Carrie Condon in this movie. They settle into a new house in the Twin Cities. It has a nice pool in the backyard, which he's hoping to use for some therapeutic work. And it starts to have this massive effect. He starts to have visions of returning to playing, and basically it turns out the pool is a sort of magic, but a sort of dark magic that could end up costing you a lot of things. In this case, it sort of negatively starts to attach to the couple's two children. The wife spends a lot of time trying to figure out what's going on and how to beat it. The husband just spirals a little bit down. This movie's 98 minutes. It felt like it lasted an eternity. I am giving this one 2 thumbs down. I think this is an early contender for possibly worst of 2024, which is really saying something. We're only a couple of days in. It wasn't scary. It wasn't particularly well shot. It was very boring. It was very nebulous, the way that they kind of set up the scares and things. And also, maybe this is nitpicking, but you're going to call a movie Night Swim. They set up in the beginning that it's at night that all these strange things happen, and then they sort of break from that formula and people start getting attacked in the middle of the day, but only a few people see it. I think if you're going to call it Night Swim and you're going to have this concept, and you've got to lean into it, and it should at the very least have been just the people that made bad decisions and were out there at night that got attacked. But there is really relatively no continuity for this film. I think it can be safely skipped. So first big release of the year, not surprising, January. We usually get a lot of films that studios don't have an incredible amount of confidence in. We also usually get a lot of horror movies in January. We're going to get some more kind of horror type action movies later in the month. Hopefully they will be a little better, but this one, the first one out of the gates, just not a winner. Didn't even have kind of the fun, memorable scenes of a movie like Megan, which I didn't particularly care for, but kind of the dancing robot and some of the different scare scenes they put together were at least memorable, at least had you engaged. There was really nothing scary about this other than the fact that it felt like time stood still while I was in the theater watching it. So that's all. I won't belabor the point on Night Swim. That one is safely skippable. But one we talked about last week, American Fiction, had a limited release toward the end of 2023, is one of those award contending movies, comes from writer-director Cord Jefferson, based on a novel. It features Jeffrey Wright as a professor and a writer who's really trying to write some very engaging and thought-provoking books, but he's having a little bit of trouble finding an audience. Meanwhile, he's a little perturbed by the fact that he sees other authors writing what he considers to be stories in a language style that's dumbed down to appeal to mass audiences that are having more success. One of those writers, portrayed by Issa Rae in this movie. He's also having some rough personal time, some stuff going on with his sister, with his mother. His brother, played by Sterling K. Brown in a great performance, is having a little bit of a meltdown. So he decides, you know what, screw it. I'm going to write the worst book I can possibly think of and send it out to publishers just to make a point. He does that, and you guessed it, people are very interested in the book. He ghostwrites it basically under a pseudonym, and it's interesting to see this journey and really to see his reaction to it. I thought Jeffrey Wright was incredible in this. As I mentioned last week, I had it up in my top 12. I'm giving it 2 thumbs up. It was actually one of the movies that I watched, in this really dense parade of award season films that released in December that stood out, that I really enjoyed. Eric felt the same way. If you go back and watch our top 12 episode from last week, you can get a few of our comments. But I want to make a pitch. This movie now is starting to open wider to more audiences. We'll see a few movies that released in limited at the end of the year that are going to be coming out wider. We're going to be covering them as we go through the next few weeks. But I really love this movie. I love the performances, and I would encourage you to go and check it out. So that is a look at a couple of movies that are out this week that you can go and take a look at. Hope that you enjoyed that. Next week, Eric's hoping to be back. We will be looking at the musical version of Mean Girls, which is, it was a movie in the early 2000s and a Broadway play. Now they've adapted the Broadway play back to cinemas. Tina Fey and Tim Meadows are reprising their roles in this. Looks like it'll be a lot of fun. That's kind of the first big blockbustery release of 2024 that opens on Friday. We will look at that next week, and we will also be looking at Pixar's Soul, which released kind of during the pandemic in 2020. Pixar notably did not get their films get a wide release during the pandemic in 2020, 2021, or 2022. And a lot of those movies that released straight to Disney Plus are now getting their first ever theatrical run over the next 3 months. The first of those is Soul, which also features the voice of Tina Fey. Those two are the big releases next week. So we're going to be going back, kind of a rewind, looking at Soul, because it is now coming to theaters for the first time. So that'll be something exciting to look at next week. So until then, we will see you at the movies. Hope you have a great week.